Count it all joy. Don't let life get you down. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. No need to worry. Things are turning right around.
Today, we're sitting
It's
down
gonna
with the
get
singer and
better.
songwriter Diamond
It's
Imani.
gonna get
We're going to learn
better.
about her story,
I've
her
been
progression, her
praying
testimony,
hard.
and all of
Life
the
is
faith and
really
transitions along
hard.
the way.
Trying to
Tune
not
in to Diamond
worry. It
Imani
ain't
after rehearsal
always
behind the music. Check
easy.
it out. All right, welcome Diamond to After Rehearsal Behind the Music podcast. So happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I was really excited about this because I really love what you're doing, like so far, like just to see the different types of artists, even on the artist spotlight that you had the other day,
Mhm.
like just to see the different types of artists that you had just within that. Like, this is like probably one of my favorite parts of being an artist is actually being able to share the message behind what I create. So I
I
really
love
love
that.
what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Tell us about your journey, how you got started in music, and what your early path looked like. What was it like? What was life like being signed to a label, and what are you experiencing now as an independent artist, walking in your own lane?
So my upbringing was very musical. Like my mom, she has had a lot of experience in the industry with different gospel artists, R&B artists as well, and she has been a mentor to me. So that really, I guess, summarizes my upbringing. I was born into a very churchy and musical household, and that's how I came up. And she's always told me that from like around the age of 4 is when I knew that I already wanted to sing, and I just gravitated to music. And from that point on, it was in high school where I really discovered that this is what I wanted to do as a career. And of course, I started out as R&B for those who don't know and didn't hear my testimony yet. But I started out as R&B, and in high school, the choral department was very, how can I say it? Like we were very involved in the different events in our schools. And additionally, we were able to put on our own performances, our own shows. And that's where like I was like, oh, like I went all out every time. I had like the live tracks ready, I had the choreography, the costumes, everything. And that's where like I got hands-on experience with like being able to be like, you know what? I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life. So from there, I got accepted into my dream school, Berklee College of Music. Always wanted to go. It was super expensive, but I always wanted to go. And I did the audition and everything. And that's where I got diagnosed with a blood disorder called aplastic anemia, which is where basically my body was not producing the blood cells that it needed. And from that point, I wasn't able to go to my dream school. And that whole journey was about 2 years. So it was from 2016 to like roughly the end of 2018. And immediately, because I wasn't able to do music within that time, as soon as I was released from my doctor to be able to go about my life with this new normal, I immediately wanted to come out with music. So my first song would come out January 2019. From that point, I worked really hard as an artist, as far as getting regular gigs, getting performances, booked my first out of town show, all of that. I would come out with 3 projects from 2019 to 2023. And it paid off because I was offered a music deal. Now, at the time, that wasn't a goal of mine. Like, it wasn't something that I was like, you know what, like I like really want to be signed by Def Jam or Sony or this or that. That wasn't like a goal that I had in mind. I actually was content with doing it the independent way, especially hearing about all of the different artists that have been robbed, that have, ended up signing a terrible deal, and all of those horror stories within the music industry. That wasn't something that I aspired to be a part of. However, my image and the message that I had at that time as an R&B artist, it aligned with everything else at the time. It was very current, it was very modern, it was very um it it was everything that didn't glorify God. So from that point, with the music deal opportunity, things moved very quickly for me. I moved from Atlanta back to New York because that's actually where I was born and raised. And I moved back to New York, And from 2023 to the end of maybe like Christmas time, everything was moving really quickly for me. I already had my photo shoot for the release and I was in the studio almost every day. And then from that point, at the top of 2024 is when things started to slow down. And in a sense, this year I would experience what it is like to be shelved as an artist in a sense, where you're locked into a contract, but you're not able to actually do anything. I wasn't able to release music on my own, of course, because of the contract. And that was one of the most depressing years. That, along with 2016, two of the most depressing years of my life, because for one, I wasn't able to do music. Now, when I was sick, it was because physically and also with the illness, I was very limited in what I could do. But it was different being well, being completely healed, and still not being able to do what I love to do. So at that time, I was struggling with my mental health. I was very depressed. Even from like this time last year, drastically different for me because at that time last year, 2024, I suffered when it came down to like who I was aside of music because I had to abruptly figure that out. I had to um try to grasp. I guess I'll put it in this perspective. The music deal, it was the core of why I was uprooted from everything that I was comfortable in. It was the core of why, like, I literally went from having my own place, my own car. Like, I was good. I had regular gigs. Like, I was cruising. I was comfortable. But when things started to dry up there, that is also what played a part in, what uprooted me to go to New York, a part of this deal. Everything lined up just fine. So you could imagine that when things just started to fall apart with the music deal being the core of everything, like it affected my livelihood. I had to stay with my mom. And at the time, she had a studio. Like she's living her best life. She is an empty nester. She doesn't, all of my other siblings, I have a older brother, younger sister. We're all over the age of 21. So it's like she's able to live on her own. You know what I'm saying? It's her first experience of that as well, now that we're all of age. And I was either on a couch or on an air mattress because my mom is living for herself. You know what I'm saying? Like this wasn't anything that either one of us saw happening. Like everything was going fine. 2023, everything was moving quickly. We were already in talks of, oh, I'm gonna be, having shows in London and I'm gonna be released there. So for 2024 to hit me like it did, and my life suffer because of music, it made me not want it anymore. And it made me feel like if this is all that this entails, and if this is what this looks like, I don't want to be in this contract anymore. I was full of frustration and disappointment so much that it felt like it just suffocated me. So along that time though, God works everything for the good, right? So with that, I always heard that coming up as a kid, but that is the year where I really discovered what that meant. And 2024, with that frustration and also the transformation that God was doing inside of me, I was able to, at a certain point, I was like, you know what? If this R&B thing doesn't happen, like I'm ready for it to hurry up and be over with. Like at this point, listen, I only want to do a couple albums and then just be done. You know what I'm saying? Just be done with it all. So within that time, for some reason, the desire to want to do gospel and transition to that started being on my heart. And that desire, it grew more and more and more. So God would allow either someone to plant a seed, being like, oh, your music is going to help people. Like it is time for you to come out with what you have to say because your message is going to help heal people, etc. And I started hearing that more and more. I even showed my mom a gospel song that I liked at the time. And I was like, could you hear me? Like, could you hear me doing this type of music, whatever? Just testing to see, you know what I'm saying? And my mom was like, yes. She's always told me that I would end up doing gospel. She's always told me that. I didn't want to believe it though. So at this time, I was really praying and fasting and just really seeking God about this transition because especially from R&B and the type of artist that I was, you can't just wake up one day and be like, "Oh, I want to do gospel." Like if you're not grounded in that, that's not something that you should do. And I took that very seriously, especially coming up in the church. Like I took that very seriously. So I spent some time doing that. And I had made my decision to do gospel. But the predicament came when I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this desire to do gospel. I feel like this is what you want me to do, Lord. But you know that I'm still stuck in this contract. So fast forward. The meeting happens that was already in the work for months about just talking about what hasn't happened, how I have been dropped in a sense, and, just the whole how nothing has been productive. And it's almost been 3 years. May will literally make 3 years of this whole experience that I've had. So in that meeting, I'm able to get out my frustration, get out my disappointment about everything that has happened. And I was really grateful for that because that weight, like I remember after the meeting, I slept better. You know what I'm saying? Because that weight has been on me for so long. And I was able to voice that to the producer that I was signed to and my parents, who are both involved in my music career. And with that, um, some time went on. This meeting lasted a few hours. And my mother asked me, she said, okay, after I had brought up at the beginning of the conversation me wanting to be released from the contract, my mom asked me, she said, how do like, where do you see yourself in a couple of years, like 2 to 5 years from now? I said, doing gospel and releasing music on my own. Now that terrified me because I knew that I had to be obedient with where my heart was. My heart was no longer in R&B. There was no denying that. But I was scared because I still have legal obligations. Like I'm signed to this contract and that's legally binding. So after that, that posed the problem within the conversation because it's just like, well, like you're signed already as an R&B artist. So I just became overwhelmed because then I was presented with two options. The first option was to give this some more time, and that would mean almost a year, 7 months more being in this situation. And if something took off, if a song blew up, I would be stuck as an R&B artist. Other option was I could walk away, but I will owe back thousands of dollars for the last 2.5 years of everything, that as far as the studio time, the engineer, the photo shoot, the everything that the photo shoot entailed, my hair, the outfits, everything, the photographer. So naturally, like, how do you make that decision? Like, how do you make the decision of one bad option that's gonna make me unhappy, right? Another, that option would obviously take a toll on my mental health if that's not where my heart is. Then the other option, I'm leaving off worse than when I came, owing back, being thousands of dollars in debt for this deal. So I go into the bathroom and I asked to be excused because I really tried to keep my businesswoman hat on, but it was so overwhelming for me because this deal, like, it wasn't just tied to my career, wasn't just tied to my passion, which is already a weight on its own. It was connected to my whole life. And it was the tool to make my whole life fall apart. So went into the bathroom and I'm just like, Lord, why would you allow, like, you knew that this is where I was going to be at this very moment. You knew that I was going to have the desire to do gospel. You knew I wasn't going to want to do R&B anymore. You knew that I would be faced with these two bad options. And you also knew what you were doing by bringing me here. I'm trusting that this season is just was not for no reason because I noticed this transformation in myself. So I need you to get me out of this because I literally, there's no way out right now and I can't do it on my own. So I get myself together. And I go back to the table. My father tells me, he's like, you're good. You are going to be released from the contract. And every song that you've written, which at this time it was over 3 albums worth of music, all the songs that you've written, anything that, will get sold to another artist, whatever the case may be, will just operate, within the deal with you being a writer, and that be it. This was the first season where I really saw how God made a way out of no way. It's like he put me in these seasons to experience different parts of who he is. The first season, when I was dealing with the illness, I saw how he was a healer. And honestly, a, a lot of times we grieve what didn't happen, but we don't know what was behind that other door. It clearly wasn't meant for me to go to Berkeley. I am doing what I love to do without being thousands of dollars in debt for that school. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm doing what I love to do now. I am able to freely release music on my own and it be a message attached that I am passionate about, that's tied to my faith. You know what I'm saying? And throughout it all, I was able to see that um waiting on the Lord is just, it's the best thing that you could do. It's not easy. It's not easy giving your yes. It's not easy being obedient in that way, even when it looks against your will that you want. But I'm so thankful for it because literally, if you would have met me then, 2023, and seen me now, it's a complete 180. And God, he turned my life around, but it was through the thing that I love the most. It was through music. You know what I'm saying? And if I had to do it all over again, whew, it's like, but that season of suffering is so worth it. You know what I'm saying? I would absolutely do it all over again because that season, it took me from that to get to where I am now. So now, fast forward to answer the independent part of the question. Um, I am freely releasing music on my own, and I'm so much more happier than I was. You know what I'm saying? And even though I am starting completely over, I was able to reach a certain amount of accolades as an R&B artist, but that's not what's for me. That wasn't tied to my purpose besides me using my gift. You know what I'm saying? Now it's tied to my purpose and I have a message to actually help people, to actually encourage people. And I had to go through a season of knowing what it's like to need to be encouraged, you know? So yeah, I hope that answers every part of it so far.
Absolutely. And you don't answer like three questions, so we good. We good. I think I was telling my mom, I was like, I have this gospel artist I'm going to be interviewing. I said I'm excited because she has a story, and just hearing the fullness of that was really incredible to just see like all of it. I know kind of midway through the question you were talking about how the concerns about switching from R&B to gospel based off of how you had presented yourself as R&B. I think a lot of times people don't take a look at the perception of how, like when you're a different genre artist, you have to put on the persona of that. Talk about the concerns that you had of the persona that you put on as an R&B artist and how you kind of overcame the perception change of your audience to say, hey, I'm not how I would present it in these albums, from the songs or the lyrics or kind of how I suggested things, to now making music for Jesus. Like, what was that like in your mind? And then kind of how'd you get the saints to be like, okay, she good now?
Oof. That's a good oh, that's a good
Because I, I
question.
think I think about what was it, the scene on the Fighting Temptations in the beginning of the movie where they're like, "Do it to me again." Well, we all know what that means. So I was as an artist,
Amen. Gambling. Amen. And drinking, which is all going on down at that juke joint where she sings. Just take a look at this. Do it to me again. Now we all know what it means.
so it's like she out here in the clubs making songs for the men,
Yeah.
leading them down. Satan's, like what what was that transition like of like, okay, I'm not this anymore. This is what I am.
Oh man.
I thought of
Um,
that scene, so I had to I had to mention it.
yeah. That's hilarious. No, seriously, it's sad because that is how it is. That is how it is with other believers and other Christians who, you know, believe the same thing that you believe. That's literally how it is. And I have already experienced the judgment and the negative comments from people within a close vicinity of my life. And that's something that I am still giving to God, because I know that like it's not, even though I know that my intentions are pure and that I listen to the Lord, that this is all ordained by him. There are still some people who are going to have their opinions, especially those who knew who I was as an R&B artist, but I'm just trusting God. And hey, no, this is a part of my story. Yes, as an R&B artist, I talked about relationships and sex, and my life reflected that privately. Yeah. And I'm not going to be ashamed by that. At one point I felt like I had to be. You know what I mean? Like I felt like the opinions from people and that judgment, hidden behind concern, like that is something that I really struggled with during this hiding season for me, where I felt like I wasn't qualified to do what I'm doing now, and that's also, I mean, I feel like that can even encourage people as well. We don't know how many people are in that just need one person to plant that seed of no, like it's okay. Like everyone sins. Let's start there, right? Everyone has their thing. The only thing about me is that mine was out loud. It was for people to see. You know what I'm saying? Like it was for within my artwork, or of course, like I said, how I presented myself, and that message that I had then, even with how I dressed. I wasn't modest. I had certain type of costumes where it was really tight, or I had to show some skin in some type of way. Yeah, that is how I was. But back to what your question was, it's like that is still something presently that I have to actively give to God, because those comments from people, especially in such a sacred time, like when God is taking you through a transformation, that's not something where it's like I was so fragile, and to have that in my mind, that wasn't easy, but that is something that I actually give to God. And instead of being filled with shame and filled with guilt about that, I'm not going to condemn myself. And I share my testimony on purpose. I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does, and it's a beautiful answer because I think with that transition, people don't realize, or just in general as an artist, people don't realize the guilt, the shame, the worry, the anxiety that we naturally carry of releasing our music, not feeling like it's adequate enough, comparing to other artists, wanting to make sure that people really dig it, realizing that your target audience isn't the people that know you the best because they're not talking about your stuff, but they'll talk about everybody else's stuff that are inaccessible. So it's like you're like, wait a minute, okay, you're paying $1,000 to go see this person, but you can't pay 10 to come see me live. Come on, yeah.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I definitely get that.
so it's hey, I'm already putting myself down. I'm already trying to make my own path, and like you said, Romans 3:23, like we all have sin and come short. In the midst of it, it's like, okay, are you going to give me grace enough to realize that I'm going in the direction I should, and this is not just a quick crossover album?
Exactly. And I think that's where, we have to lean on God for, where we fall short of and where we're insecure about, because even in that was something that I really, dealt with, like I said before. But another part of it too is when God has really transformed you, it's gonna be undeniable, and there will be people who still have something to say. There will be people. I mean, Jesus dealt with that. You know what I'm saying? And he's Jesus. Like it's like he dealt with the naysayers and like the people who challenged him. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it's not easy, but a tip that I will say that aside from trusting on, trusting in God with where you may feel shame and guilt in that area, but it's also to just allow God to cut off what doesn't belong. Like a way that I overcame that as well, or began the process of overcoming it, is I just went with whatever conviction I felt. So I felt the need to just clean my Instagram. I felt the need to just, and that was before I even transitioned to gospel. Little did I know that I would end up here. You know what I'm saying? But I felt the need to also, I had a name change. I identified as something else before. And I just felt the need to just, the rebrand in a sense started before I even knew that I was going to be at this point. You know what I mean? So that's another tip that I would say, is to just like that nudge that you feel about certain things, or like that little voice that you hear telling you to do, especially if it's not something that that you feel like would be what God would instruct you to do. Go with that. Because that is also a really important part as well. Like it's in a sense allowing yourself to be cut and allowing yourself to detox from what does not serve you, from what you don't even see yet.
Love that.
Yeah.
Let's rewind a bit. Growing up, so I know you said you have a musical family, but what was the moment that you knew you loved music? How did passion shape your life and choices? And who were some key musical influences that molded your sound and voice?
Ooh. It's weird because we don't really remember things much like from under the age of 5. But there are 3 songs that I can listen to that almost gives me a glimpse on me falling in love with music as a kid. So those songs were Try Again by Leah. Um, what is this song by Yolanda Adams? I think it's called Open My Heart. I
Yes.
think it's called. And Redeemer by, what is her name? It starts with a K. But
Carrie Jo-
I know my Redeemer lives.
was it Carrie Joe?
Um,
No,
what is her
somebody else.
name? Oh, Nicole Mullen.
Yes.
Yes, those 3
Yes.
songs, I can hear those songs to this day, and it's almost like I knew how I felt like as a kid. So I would say that definitely played a part in me discovering that, oh, this is what I love to do. Like even as a kid at one of my home churches in upstate New York, um, I would teach the choir. Like, and I was what, like a preteen. I was like 11. It was like from like 11 to 13 years old, something like that. And my cousin at the time, she was over the team. She was over the music department, and she would allow me to teach songs, here and there. And it's different moments as I got older, where I was like, oh yeah, like this is what I love to do. Like even in high school, that is where I just grabbed a guitar and started writing music. Little did I know that is what would be the start of me sharpening that skill, one of my strongest skills as a musician. And then you asked me the influences. Let's see. I love Luke James. Luke James is an amazing vocalist. I came up on Kurt Franklin, the Hero album. Yeah, one of my favorite gospel albums to this day. Brandy, Full Moon. Everybody says that, but Brandy, one of my favorite singers. Jasmine Sullivan, I love her. I would also say Fantasia, Music Soul Child. Who else? Kiara Sheard. She's been a huge inspiration with me starting over in this new lane. Her old stuff, when she first came up, yeah, she's a huge inspiration. And Ty Tribbett. He's a huge part of like my life soundtrack. Like I grew up listening to him, still listen to them to this day. Usher. There was a season where I studied as a performer, I studied Beyonce and Usher heavily. That kind of ties into what you asked me before about the persona that I had to put on. They played a huge part in that. That was around where I studied them heavily was like 2014. That played a huge part, and me studying their careers and saying, okay, well, as an R&B artist, this is how I want to be. I was very like a glam type of artist. That was like my persona, you can say. But yeah, I think those would sum up a few of the influences that I have right now.
Love that. You've become an inspiration to so many through your honesty and transparency. How do you use your story, including your health journey, to uplift or encourage others who may be struggling in silence?
Oh. Um, the easiest way, I guess it's like two parts to it. So the easiest way would be through my music, of course, you know. Better, my first song actually came from that season of my life that I talked about of suffering, isolation, wilderness, many trials that I faced. I actually wrote that song to encourage myself because, you know, we had briefly talked about this. That song was inspired by James 1, 2 through 4. And for some reason, that scripture just kept coming up to me, you know, during that time. And that was a whole inspiration for the song, Count It All Joy. But aside of me writing, that song was just really, it was really on like on my heart, you know, because when you're going through that season, especially when you're not yet mature spiritually to where you have to be to understand that this is for a purpose and what I'm going through is actually for a reason, and God will use it for his good, like you have this thought process of like, well, why is this happening to me? And like, you know, Lord, like I follow you and like I have a heart to abide by your commandments and like to really please you. Why am I going through this? Why am I going through fill in the blank with something bad that's happening in your life? And it's like when you mature spiritually, you understand that we are not promised like perfection in our lives. We are not promised that everything will always be good. Like we're actually promised suffering. We're actually promised that no, you are gonna go through trials and tribulations. Why, if not, if that was not the case, then why are there so many encouraging words when you are going through something in the Bible? You know what I'm saying? So that obviously means that we would need that at some point in our lives. And that's where James 1 really just stuck with me during that time. So that is the first way that it's easy for me to encourage people through my music because I've been able to sharpen my skill as a singer, as a writer. And I was able to convey that message through song. But a way that God is pushing me out of what I know, because music is what I know. Like I can write a song all day. You know what I'm saying? I could write multiple all day. But a way that he's pushing me to encourage people is through this. Prior to this season, I would not have shared my testimony. I would have not have shared what I've been going through. I would have been dealing with it in silence. You know what I'm saying? But I think this is a way that God is getting me out of my comfort zone by actually using my voice besides being a singer. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Love that. So, as you continue to grow and evolve as an artist, what new sounds and stories or emotions are you exploring in your work? What do you want your listeners to feel when they hear your newer material?
Mm. I would say that I want my listeners to feel, I want them to feel like they're not alone. I want them to feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel. I want them to feel like, um, I want them to feel like they're also not alone in their feelings because for one reason, I think as like, especially getting to know Christ on a new level aside from how you grew up as. Because I think that's also how it ties into the first season that I went through with my health journey. That was the first season that I had and my first real experience with God and seeing his goodness that I knew I got to know him as a healer, you know? And that's something that you don't understand until you're going through it. But a part of my decision to do gospel is because when you're in that time, I don't think that people understand how helpful it is to share what you are going through. And it's a trick of the enemy to make you feel like you need to isolate yourself, to make you feel like you don't need community, to make you feel like you can't go to community in your feelings of depression. And because those feelings are real. There's a reason why it says hope deferred makes the heart sick and that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Like, those are real feelings. And sometimes I think as Christians, we can over spiritualize the real emotions that you go through because real emotions, it doesn't mean that that cancels out your faith. It just means that you're really experiencing something. You know what I'm saying? You're like it even says Jesus wept. He knew what had to be done, but he still wept, you know? And that's what I want to help people through. I want to help people through even me sharing like my testimony with just the music deal. I didn't know that that would help people and that that would bless people. Knowing that okay, it will get better and even though my story is still, is still loading, even at this point to see how that has blessed people with me just sharing that season of what I've been through, that is important. Like there are so many videos that I saw during the time of even like earlier this year, 2024, where I would see people share their story, share their hard times of suffering, share those trials. And it helped me. It helped me to be like, you know what? This is just temporary. Like this is gonna work out. God has not forgotten about me. You need that. And that's how I want to help people.
Love that. Music, purpose, healing. They all require different parts of you. How do you find balance between being an artist, an advocate, and a woman still navigating your own process?
Music, purpose, healing. Um, I would say, especially during this transformation, for some reason, God had me to sharpen my skill as a worship leader. And I would do that from, well, like the end of 2023 till now, right? Where I have certain skills now that are sharpened in that area. And I think that that was one of the biggest ways that God used my gift to sharpen me. Because as a worship leader, my mom, as a kid, I have seen her. That's all that I know is that, seeing my mom do worship, seeing my mom work with different ministries, and seeing how she moved. That played a part in my DNA, right? But worship leading, it's something that, like, you are kind of just put out there. Like you have to figure it out as you go, and you got to figure it out quickly. So through that, that was a way that I sharpened, like knowing how to fast. That was a way that I sharpened my prayer time and sharpened like listening to God in the moment. And that was a way that I got to balance out literally like that was a hands-on experience of balancing out, okay, I don't want to be sounding a mess, because sounding a mess could be a distraction when it comes to leading worship, when it comes to all of that. But I also want to make sure that my worship is authentic, and I want to make sure that I'm not making it about me and that myself is not being worshiped, or that my voice is not being worshiped, that my gift is not being worshiped. I want to make sure that more than anything that God gets the glory, that his name is glorified. So through that, that's where I learned how to get the balance of, okay, I know that I have to continue to perfect my craft as a musician, as a singer, and as an artist. Like, okay, I know that I have to continue to sharpen those gifts by whatever I need to do, studying, practicing, singing, and making sure that I'm good on the music standpoint of things, making sure that I'm able to operate out of excellence the best that I can. But in the moments that I'm not, it's okay if my worship is authentic, and that's where I got to balance it all, is because through that, when I first started leading worship, I was more sensitive to when I wouldn't sound as good. I was more sensitive to the notes that I wouldn't reach. I felt more down on myself, like, oh man, like I didn't, I would really beat myself up about that. But now I'm at the place of maturity where, hey, okay, I have gotten better as a singer, but I care more about him getting the glory than anything. So as you go on, it's something that only God can lead you through. You know what I'm saying? The thing that you are in control of is making sure that you are perfecting your craft, but in those moments, letting God take over and you will be able to see the balance of it all.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that, especially in regards to when you were talking about just he's leading me more so into worship leading because that's not only a that's not only a skill but it's a calling. Like not anybody can grab a mic and sing a song, but leading in worship requires a burden.
Mm.
If you could collaborate with any artist, past or present, who would it be and why? And what about their artistry or spirit speaks to you?
Mm. So I would say, I think I may have a couple.
Yeah.
Um, Ty Tribbett, because I love the way that throughout his career, he appeals to the youth in a way that he has like a special, unique way of doing that. And his energy. So as a performer and as someone who like I love performing. I love moving around the stage. Like that would be a reason why I would love to collaborate with him. Because he just seems like he is not only used by God, but it's in a way where he has so much energy and like the way that he just goes with the flow in the moment and it's just so he's just so vibrant and energetic on stage. Like I love that about him. Um, I would say now I would do this in a very specific way. I would say Jay Moss for backgrounds. I would love for him to arrange a song of mine. You know what I'm saying? I would absolutely love that. Because his, what album was that? The J Moss Project. That was something that I came up on for sure. And ooh, like the backgrounds that he, especially when I hear it on like any of the Sheard's music, oh my gosh, it's just so amazing. Who else would I say? I would also say Commission because their song was also Ordinary Just Won't Do. My grandfather, I would always ask my grandfather, can you play track 16? Can you play track 16? And so that song, like, I would love to remake that somehow, or like, to somehow sample that. That would be amazing, or to work with them in any way. Fred Hammond, Marvin Sapp, like, I love that group. Um, and then I would also say Mary Mary. I recently got into this like kick of like studying their music heavily. And I don't think that it's I don't think that it's honored enough or mentioned enough how like I don't even know what they're like for them to come up with the type of music that they did in that time. Like Mary is I don't care about how many honor awards that they've gotten. They are still underrated to me because like and of course maybe it's just in my opinion because at that time I was younger, but the type of music that they came out with, it wasn't the traditional gospel sound at all. And even watching their show, I got inspired so much by how, for one, by how Erica came up as an independent artist and as a solo artist, the things that she had to endure. The woman, there was different parts of their career that is so commendable, especially as a young woman, how they conducted themselves, how they dressed, and like the type of opportunities that they got, and like even behind closed doors, they upheld a certain standard. And for that, I would love to work with them someday.
And the fact that you didn't know what was going on in their homes until that show. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I definitely agree with you. The Mary Mary experience that we've been able to enjoy over the last 25 years has been an incredible run from the self-entitled album, including Destiny's Child on Been Good to Me, like iconic track to Heaven. Thank you, Lord. Like it is a classic to be played almost every jam or gig or Sunday night service to collaborations with Kirk and Like the sound album was dismissed as too secular, but
Mm.
the sound was an iconic piece of work because it's where we got God and Me. It's yeah, it's I loved the radio concept about it. The intro of God and Me, I always thought it was T Pain. I'm like, they got T Pain on this record, like,
Yeah, right?
hi, hi. I was like, oh, they got Teddy.
Yeah, and you know something about that too, it shows the importance of like before I watched the show, like I just recently watched the show. I didn't watch the show when it first aired. And I don't know, like something just like I saw a clip on TikTok and I was just like, let me watch this. And little did I know I would get so many tips, not only as an independent artist, but as a gospel artist with like ways that you can navigate, like navigate yourself. And then even seeing Tina's testimony with what she went through with her husband. It's like me seeing her songs before I watched the show, it was like, of course, Tina, she has a gift, right? Like you can tell that like she her like the way that she sings, the conviction that she sings with, she obviously was blessed with that gift. Like there's no denying that. But then seeing her testimony and then hearing her song after that, it's like it puts a whole different purpose to that. And that's I think that is the whole point of being within this genre, you know?
100%. 100%. Last question I have for you. Um, what legacy do you hope to leave behind as Diamond Imani, the artist, the woman, the vessel of faith and authenticity? So when you think about years to come, what legacy do you hope to leave behind?
Well, I would hope that my children, I'm able to see my print on them, like, because that's something that I think my mom like can like attest to in the sense of like, there's a direct part of her in me, music, even like how I go about certain things. She tells me, like she just told me yesterday, she said, "You are such a good songwriter." And she said, when I come out with myself, like I gotta make sure that I'm on it. For my mom to tell me that, it's like I learned from you. So it's just like, she jokes all day, but it's just like for her to say that, it's like I feel it hits different when it's like I have a piece of my mom in me. You know what I mean? And I want that with my children. Like, of course, whatever God calls them to do, whether that be an astronaut or whether that be, maybe one of my children may not sing or they may play an instrument, which is something that I don't do as my primary gift, but I want some part of me to be in them, not only musically, but as far as faith, right? And of course that will take me training them up in the way that they should go, but I would hope that the way that they see me live will inspire them, because that is what I also experienced with my mother is seeing her go through struggle and seeing how even how we talk about certain things now that I didn't realize before, seeing how she still persisted as a single mom of three. You know what I mean? It's like I want my kids to be inspired by how I keep going, how I keep pushing. But aside from my family, um, I want to leave a mark on people where it's just like, even like how we just talked about Mary Mary. I want people to talk about me like that. I want people, especially after they hear my story with just aside from my gift and me just talking to them or sharing my testimony, I want people to be encouraged. I want people to I want to somehow point people to Christ, whether that be through my voice and just my talent, or whether that be through my message without me singing. I that's what I want to leave because I feel like now more than ever that is my desire and that is a part of my purpose.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much for this
Of
interview and
course.
conversation. I've really enjoyed myself. I think we definitely are going to be collaborating on some future projects and such. Because where your pen and my instrumentalist skills, we could definitely partner up and do some incredible stuff. So
Yes, of
yeah,
course, of
I'm
course. Thank you so
definitely
much
looking
for
forward
having
to it.
me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was a no brainer. I hope she's interested. And I was like, hey, you gonna be there? And then you popped through, and I was
Yeah.
like, yes, yes. And so, look, and your testimony was beautiful, and your story, your faith. My goodness, like just I was watching part 1, 2, and 3 of your posts talking about your blood condition, and it was just like, wow, you went through this having just graduated from high school like that. I'm going through stuff in my grown life, and that stuff was shaking me. And like you were 18, like 17, 18, like that's wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
commend you. You are a very incredibly strong woman of God, and I appreciate you because your story has inspired me as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I
Absolutely,
appreciate that. I really enjoyed this time talking with you. Oh, my eyes
absolutely.
get watery.
Let them flow. 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 Um, do you have a because I know you said you're working on like future music, so it's single, you're working on new project. Do you have a timeline on when that's like coming out, or is it still kind of in the pre-production phase, or
That should be out in February.
okay, but
Yeah.
dope. Thank you so much for tuning in for After Rehearsal Behind the Music, hosted by Daniel James Collective. Today we talked to Diamond Imani, learned so much about her story, her life, her journey. We want to encourage you all that life is going to get better, and while you're doing so, please stream or purchase her new single, Better, on all platforms. Check it out.